The Arkham series has been one of my favorite franchises in gaming for a long time now, and because of that, it's a series that I revisit pretty often. I'd say that I replay at least one game from this series, if not more, just about semi annually, and during my most recent trip back into the Arkham universe, I thought that it might be fun to do a video ranking some of the boss fights in these games. So, that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. Now, full disclosure, this top 5 list is solely based on my personal opinion. I did not consult the many opinions of the internet on this matter when crafting this list, but I do want to hear your thoughts on my choices and how your list may be similar or different, so as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, with all that said, let's get into this. And coming in at number 5 is none other than the Scarecrow boss fight from Arkham Asylum. So, this is the one boss fight on the list that isn't really a traditional boss fight. This battle with Scarecrow takes place over a series of encounters where, after being exposed to Scarecrow's infamous fear gas, Batman is now forced to make his way through a nightmare world avoiding the gaze of Scarecrow. Now, the interesting thing about what makes this boss encounter stand out to me is the way so many things come together to really make this portion of the game feel both unique and authentic to the character of Scarecrow. The gameplay during these encounters is a bit simple if I'm being honest. It's a mix of stealth and combat, which culminates in one final face-off with Scarecrow as the game goes on. And that's fun and all, but it's really the entirety of this portion of the game and the story that makes this one stand out. The way it all plays out story-wise takes Batman on a psychological nightmare of both past and potential future horrors, which are accompanied by some fantastic cinematic scenes and some playable sequences that really create the horror thriller tone that matches the overall game. And paired with some really cool level designs and solid gameplay, it becomes a creative way to use the Scarecrow character as a boss, given that he's not really a match for Batman in any kind of hand-to-hand combat. And because of all that, I feel like the overall experience I had playing through these encounters and ultimately beating Scarecrow makes up for the simplistic gameplay more than enough to have earned a spot in this top 5. Coming in at number 4 is the Clayface boss fight from Arkham City. This is another case where it's not just the gameplay that has this one so high up in my rankings, but it's also the story behind this fight that makes this one of my favorites. There are two different phases to this fight, both with different concepts and gameplay. Phase 1 is simple but fun. You have to dodge attacks from Clayface as well as hit him with freeze blasts, all while also trying to lure him into areas of the arena that apply added damage and also help you eventually progress to the second phase. It's a challenge that requires the player to use a bit of environmental awareness and some well-timed dodging. And the second phase is more combat based, where Batman has to fight off a bunch of Clayface minions while once again also trying to both simultaneously avoid attacks from Clayface and hit him with freeze blasts. The combat of this phase really picks up the pace of the overall boss fight, and it's a good display of Batman's speed and agility and how that translates to such fun and satisfying gameplay. I'd also say that it's worth noting the story in this portion of the game is also incredibly well done. And I know this game is really old, but just in case anybody out there who's watching this hasn't played the game, it's such a good bit of writing that to this day I still don't want to take the chance of accidentally spoiling it. And I mean, if you've played the game, then you already know what I'm talking about anyways, so there's really no need to spoil it. Now, with the number 3 spot on this list, we have our first and only appearance from Arkham Origins, which is the one game from the mainline Arkham series that wasn't developed by Rocksteady, but instead was done by WB Montreal. And that is the Deathstroke boss fight. This fight was just so cool and so fun to play through. The character design of Deathstroke is all armored up and he looks amazing. The fight itself is difficult as it requires some really precise timing on counters, but I've also always felt like logically that makes sense given the hand-to-hand combat skills of Deathstroke, so I've actually really always liked the design of it in that way. You need to continuously change up your use of gadgets and attacks in order to keep Deathstroke open to damage, which is a really fun concept, and it shows that some thought went into designing the fight based on the character. And that's one thing that's a consistent quality of my favorite boss fights from this franchise. In my opinion, this is easily the best boss fight of the game, and it's almost a bit unfortunate for the game itself that it takes place so early on in the story. because it sets the bar really high for everything that comes after it. So, with this number 2 spot, we are now getting to what I consider the best of the best. And this next one is easily my favorite of the game that it belongs to, which is the Poison Ivy boss fight in Arkham Asylum. Again, here we have a two-phase fight, and in phase one, you take on Ivy and her plant monster, which has a series of attacks that are both environmental and projectiles, which become fairly difficult to dodge as you also try and hit the plant with batarangs right in the center where Ivy's controlling the creature. And once you get through that phase, Ivy then adds some hypnotized minions to mix in a little bit of combat while you once again dodge the attacks from her plant monster. Much like with Scarecrow, all of this just feels like such a unique and standout boss fight once you actually get to this portion of the game. The character design of Ivy and her plant monster are wonderfully done, and the setting of the botanical garden that this whole battle takes place in looks awesome. And I'll be honest, I found the difficulty of this fight to be fairly challenging. Beating this one made for one of those nice little gaming accomplishment feelings you get when you beat a boss. It's not quite at the level of a game like Elden Ring, but it was still great. And finally, we have the number 1 spot, which goes to a boss fight that I don't think will surprise very many fans of the franchise, and that is the Mr. Freeze fight from Arkham City. When this game came out, this fight felt like a groundbreaking change to boss fights in gaming. The adaptive nature of Mr. Freeze, where he learns from the ways that you've already taken him down and prevents you from using the same method twice, which then challenges you as the player to get creative and lure him into different takedowns, was just phenomenal. The first time playing through this is such an awesome experience because you have to use your Batman skills and gadgets to figure out all the ways in which you can take down Mr. Freeze. Then you actually have to apply them in succession to complete the task. And then when you combine all that awesome gameplay with great character and level design from Mr. Freeze and the frozen GCPD building that he's claimed and turned into a boss arena, as well as a fantastic portion of the story that unfolds throughout this encounter, this boss fight is top tier in my opinion. The one flaw with this boss fight for me is that unfortunately, after you've done it once, some of that allure does fade a little bit, but it's still such a fun boss fight to play through that challenging yourself to do it in different ways than you have in the past becomes fun in its own way. But for everything that the first experience of playing through this boss fight was, plus all the fun you can have replaying it later on, this will always be my favorite of the franchise. And with that, we have my top 5 Arkham boss fights. Now, like I said earlier, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments about where you may agree with me or disagree with me, if there's something I left out, or if you'd maybe rearrange some of the order that I have in my list. One of my favorite things about gaming is having discussions about the games that we love. So with that in mind, as always, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back again soon.